Yes, we're back with a new name. Away Diaries. I think it's a better name that describes what we're doing. We're trying to get together people who are away from home, see and tell their stories. So that's why we changed it, right, Flavio?
That's right. You've been traveling recently.
Yeah, I did. It was sunny in London, so I decided to leave and go to San Sebastian where it was raining, but it was amazing.
Was it
Um,
raining?
yeah, it was. Yeah. But luckily, no one goes to San Sebastian for the rain or for the weather at least. We go there for the food. It was amazing. Definitely worth a try, guys. You
Highlight
have
of the
a
trip?
highlight of the trip? The food and the drinks for some reason. I forgot what the wine is called, but the wine was great. It was white wine. I don't usually drink it, but that was good. Yeah.
All right, good. So we have a special guest today, Alana. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I feel
It's
like
an it's an honor.
no, it's an honor for us. I feel like it took a few tries to get you on because you always traveling the globe. So
My speaking
Yes.
commitments are far and wide, but I'm glad that I was able to accommodate the Home Away Diaries. So thank you for having me.
Yes, very excited to have you on. And since we're doing a little rebrand, you'll be our first guest on this new brand new show. So there you
Fantastic. Well, I
go.
guess as a native Aussie, Home and Away is one of the
Oh
best
yeah,
Aussie exports, so maybe that's fitting.
maybe we stole the name from something. I don't know.
Sora,
You have to ask OpenAI about it.
were you inspired, Sora, by obviously your fiance is Australian, Alana's Australian? Was it in the back of your head? You think
I'll go with yes.
All your
Alana?
guests
Yeah,
can be Australian, slowly morph the
the
demographic to
demographics.
Aussies. Everyone will have the same story.
If we stick with the same theme, there's a couple of Aussies coming just from our own family. So there you go.
Oh, exciting.
Um, so as you know, Alana, we kind of start with thinking about your home. What do you love? What do you miss? What you've done? And then your motivation to coming here. So maybe if you give a bit of intro about yourself, your background, then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I am a native Aussie. I was born and raised in Adelaide in South Australia, which is in the middle at the bottom of the country and is often a state or a city that people tend to forget. It's left off the map, but it is the best kept treasure and hidden gem. Humbly, I would say. But Adelaide is known for its food and wine. So you love San
Yes.
Sebastian food and wine. I think Adelaide has some of the best food and wine going, some of the best restaurants, lots of wineries. So yeah, I feel very nostalgic and proud of where I grew up. But I have lived in London for 9 years now. So
Wow.
it's just been 9 years, and I'm now a British citizen. So
Oh wow.
proud to
Very
say that
cool.
I'm also a dual passport holder after lots of money spent to stay in this country.
I'm glad you told us about the British citizenship. So, because most of the people who have been on so far don't have their citizenship, and some of them are worried about the Home Office. So I'm glad you're verified. You're
A,
allowed to
ver-
be here.
a verified Brit. Although it's
Yes.
funny because I guess probably some of your other guests and future guests would feel like this, that despite calling London home and, having lived here for this long, you don't necessarily feel like this is your home because your heart is where you grew up. And yeah, you feel like a little bit like an outsider at home and a little bit of an outsider here, which is a strange feeling.
No,
Do you
it's
feel,
true.
do you feel like a true Brit, Alana?
No,
Or
definitely not. They can't make me one of them.
you passed
Chris tried.
did you pass your life in the UK test?
Yes, I did. And I
There you go.
properly studied for that, but I couldn't tell you anything now. Let's be honest, like I crammed like I would for an exam at school, and then it's all in one ear, out
Instantly
the other.
forgotten. Yeah.
Don't need any of that information. But it was
Yeah, I think
hard. Like it was really hard to study for that. And the dates and the people and the names. So I really feel for those people that English are a second language, because I struggled with learning all the dates and memorizing things that British people that were born and raised here wouldn't know today. So it is hard.
And the thing is, you are right. I mean, I did mine in December, and okay, I didn't study as much, but I did do like all the questions until I memorized them basically. And I was only in there for not long. I came out, I kind of felt disappointed because I felt like I wish there were more questions because you have to learn so many like every date and all the stewards and I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, there you go.
Yeah, I haven't done mine, but I like to do it every once in a while just in case to see if I would pass. A lot of it I wouldn't pass because it's such a random knowledge, right, guys? It's
Yeah.
like the things they ask, as you said, Alana, it's not things you would usually know, even if you're British.
What
It's
in
a bit,
what year did like the Jacobite, something or other take place? And it's like 1776, 1775, you know, there's like dates are so similar. So it's like, how can you possibly ever remember? Or like, how is that relevant?
that's a good point.
And I can't tell you if it was in the 1700s. I don't remember.
Don't worry. No, nobody's gonna revoke your citizenship now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
too late now.
Yeah. I'm in.
You were saying about Adelaide, and I've heard so much about, especially the wine region. It's the main wine region in Australia. What was kind of your motivation for leaving and coming to the UK, to London?
Do you know what? I feel like from probably when I was about 14 or 15, I just started getting obsessed with London, like London specifically as a city.
Oh, really?
I always quite liked the royals. I suppose I grew up in somewhat of a royalist family. I was obsessed with Princess Diana when I was younger, and just this like fascination with London and living and working in like a big city. And I think as I grew up, right from childhood, my parents had always been big travelers, and our house had portraits from the Musée d'Orsay, and like Monet and Manet and different famous artists' paintings and pictures of mum and dad traveling and like having spaghetti in back streets of Naples. And, it's just like raised with those sort of memories and stories from mum
Yeah.
and dad, and just had this hunger to travel and see the world. And it was always really strongly this appetite to come and explore more of Europe and the majestic castles and the history, and the history of the wars I always found very interesting and sad. Australia is such a new country, so its history doesn't
Mm.
go back as far. The buildings are beautiful, but in a different way. They're not as medieval. And yeah, so I suppose just from being quite a teenager, I was just obsessed with moving to London and living and working and traveling. And that manifested more and more as I got older and went to university, and seeing other people travel and being jealous of like, I want to go to Croatia and I want to see that. And,
Yeah.
I want to do all of those things.
Aussies travel quite a bit, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I think,
Yeah.
especially because Australia is so fast, like a
Yeah.
good 24-hour flight to get to this side of the world. So when people come from Australia, they're not coming for a week or two, like they're coming for weeks
Yeah.
at a time. And they have that mentality of trying to see and do as much as possible. So that definitely has been true in my first few years in London. And even before I properly moved here, backpacking around and spending time in London and Prague and all through Eastern Europe and Central Europe, it was just this appetite of, I want to be there, I want to be in that action.
When did you decide to actually make the move and permanently pack your suitcase?
Yeah, good question. So I remember it distinctly because I was actually at the time with some friends backpacking around the US, and we were on an overnight bus from Florida into New Orleans. And
Okay.
I had this opportunity to go to Gallipoli for the 100-year anniversary for Anzac Day, which the dawn service is a very, a big deal, and they have on the peninsula and a dawn service every Anzac Day. And for the 100-year anniversary, it was all ticketed, and I'd applied for a ticket and I didn't get it. And I was really, devastated that I was missing out. But would watch it on TV, and I just always wanted to be part of that experience. And a family friend did get in the ballot, and his son couldn't make it, and he had to return the ticket or have a companion to go with him.
Yeah.
I was so lucky and grateful that mum and dad ran into him at their local cricket club where my dad and
Wow.
grandfather played, and he mentioned it, and they said like, "Oh, Alana wanted to go and loved to." And he said, "Well, the ticket's hers if she can book a flight basically within the next 48 hours and prove to the Australian government that she was going to be in Turkey for Anzac Day." And so I was on this overnight bus in the US, basically deciding, do I do that? Do I go and travel for a few weeks and then go home? And, I'm hemorrhaging money backpacking in the US. I've got no savings because I'm spending it all on my travels in America, which
Yeah.
was amazing. But what do I do? Like, do I decide that I then just go to Gallipoli, travel and move to London? Is that smart? And I just thought all night the pros and cons, and I came up with this list, and I thought, yeah, this is time. This is like my sign from the universe that I should move to London and follow my dreams. So that's what I did. So that is when I decided I would move, but I still had
Wow.
another 2 or so months backpacking around the US and in New Orleans, which is known for the
How long did you backpack around the US? Sounds good.
Oh
exactly
wow,
90
Cool.
days, which is the 3-month visa, like a tourist visa you can have.
Yes.
And we were about only 3 weeks into our trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd booked my flight, told mum and dad, surprise, I'm moving to London, like on this date, basically. I got back to Australia around November time. So I didn't move to London technically until April. I had a few months to sort out my affairs and get a visa and all of that stuff.
Well, arriving after obviously being away for 90 days and
Mhm.
came back.
thinking that you're gonna come back and then suddenly coming back and being like, okay, 4 months, 5 months left and I'm out of here.
Yeah, it was just like really exciting. And
Yeah.
I think my parents have always been incredible support. And they're like, well, we always knew that this was inevitable. You've always talked about London. Probably stop talking about it and just do it. Like, now's the
Just do it.
time. So, yeah, they've always been brilliant and my biggest support and champions. And even when I have bad days now, they're like, you'll get through it. Go have a glass of wine. Tomorrow's another day. So, yeah, there's never been any pressure from them to move home or pack it
Do they
all
come
in if it's not working out.
do they come and see you over here, Alana? I guess they must have been here before you moved, right? Part of
Yeah,
their
they do. And as I said, they love to travel. So obviously COVID sort of put a halt in those travel plans. But yeah, they've come over every other year if I've not gone back. But last year they came over for a good few months. This year they're coming not to London actually. They are spending most of their time in Europe and Italy, but they're also living their retirement dream now. So yeah, it's a family that loves to travel, which is really lovely.
awesome. That's where you get the genes from, the
Yeah, I
travel
think
bugs.
so.
Yeah,
The apple
amazing.
doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, yeah, definitely not.
Have you got any siblings, Alana, that are
Yes,
also avid
I
travelers? Or
I have a younger brother who is actually not a big traveler. He's quite a homebody. He's very resourceful. He's currently just bought an old Datsun Ute that he's doing up.
oh
And
wow,
my nephew is one and a bit. So he's a
Oh,
family man.
oh,
yeah.
cute.
Maybe when Ziggy gets a little bit older, they'll be traveling.
You can influence your nephew to move to London.
Yeah, I will convince him to move to London.
Exactly.
I'm not
You
sure
can
how his mom and dad will feel about
you can
that.
tell them you help him study for his life in the UK and
He'll be an asset.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly, exactly.
In terms of, I mean, Alana, I don't really know much about Adelaide. I don't know how many people do, but why
Adelaide.
Adelaide?
Kept
What,
bigger
what,
in Australia.
what is it?
Mm.
The migrants that came there, or is it a bit of a melting pot of people, maybe from a long time ago? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Australia obviously has like quite a multicultural history and like present day is very
Mhm.
multicultural. South Australia was a free state, so it was settled, whereas some of the eastern states like New South Wales was where the convicts from England were shipped off to if they stole a slice of bread and, whatever petty crimes they did, they went to this glory land as it turned out to be.
True.
Yeah.
Imagine stealing a bread and ending up in Australia, and you're like, "Whoa, this worked out better than expected."
Probably at the time it was probably not that
Yeah.
great, but their future generations would be grateful for sure. But yes, South Australia has quite a German influence, and my
Mm.
great ancestors have German heritage. So they're Falkenbergs. My nana was a Falkenberg, and they set up in the Barossa Valley. So there's still a lot of Falkenbergs around. There's probably some in Europe as well. So if they're listening, please reach out. I would love to meet them.
Have you done the
Oh,
ancestry test?
ancestry. Do you know what? I
Maybe,
haven't, but I should because I
yeah,
guess the reason that I've been
bring them
able to,
all together.
yeah, the reason I've been able to stay in London beyond the 2 year youth mobility visa, which lots of people are on, is because my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was British, so he was English
Mm.
and grew up in Harrogate in Yorkshire. So I'm
Oh,
sure
wow.
that I have English family, great family, great relatives, still in England. So I should do that because otherwise I have quite a small family. So yeah, I would love to meet some of my extended family.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's kind of similar, but in Sri Lanka there's some people called burger, not like a burger, but essentially people who have mixed with British
Yeah.
people, right? And there's
Ah,
this lady who's probably, I reckon, in her 50s, who my parents know. She's from Sri Lanka, but she has green eyes, but kind of my color. And I think 20 years ago, this is a different, maybe not pre-internet, but she basically came to the U when she moved to the UK. She actually put like an ad in a newspaper in Scotland that was actually be able to retrace and meet her long lost relatives
Wow.
from
really?
like 100 years ago.
Find My Family TV
Yeah,
series, getting
Yes, I was going to
professional
say.
here. She's taken
yeah.
matters into her own hands. I love that.
So I'm sure you can. I'm sure we can find something. Maybe we can. That's in the next episode.
Yeah.
Maybe a documentary.
The next podcast, yeah, Find
Yeah,
My
the next one.
Family.
Finding Alana's roots in
Yeah.
Harrogate.
We'll go on a road trip.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
That would be so cool.
Have you been to Harrogate?
Yeah, I have.
Were you,
Beautiful.
were you looking
Yorkshire's
around for people?
beautiful. Yeah,
You look,
stalking
were you looking for
houses.
anyone look like you?
I
Hey, are you?
actually did go to the house where my grandfather grew up and sat outside
Okay.
and took some photos. My mum still remembered the address, but obviously, check like no family lives there. And my grandfather and his family were 10-pound poms. So they got the boat to Australia, 3 month journey for £10, which again, if anyone knows the cost of airfares to Australia, sign me up for a 3 month boat trip. I would
Yeah.
be happy to pay £10.
Free cruise.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Amazing. Sorry, my internet is acting up. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
It's the first time
Technical.
I'm freaking out over technical
Yeah,
difficulties that Sohrab
you're
is
too
having.
early. I
I'm
keep
letting.
seeing these pop-ups here.
So have you? Is it 9 years now, Alana, that you've been here?
Yes, 9 years. I'm looking forward to, I don't know, doing something very British for my 10 year, hopefully. Like, what would that be?
Pub
Scones
lunch.
with the king? Yeah, pub lunch. Yeah, 9 years.
And
That
in
would be
terms,
that would be cool.
did you start your kind of professional working career here as well? I mean, 9 years ago, you said you were backpacking, so I'm guessing you were
Yeah, I
fresh
did.
out of
I
uni, probably.
I did a little freelance work and sort of casual work in Australia. I studied journalism. So I did a Bachelor of Communication, Media and Culture, and then I did a master's in journalism. So I did some freelance writing and worked for a few publications at home on sort of like short contracts. But my first real everything was in London, which thinking back
Mm.
now, I was just incredibly naive. So from setting up a bank account, getting a phone, finding a job, finding a house, everything was the first in London by myself, making these decisions in a place that I even though had a middle class upbringing and can speak English, it would seem on paper like a very easy move to London. I remember when I did move here feeling like there was all these things I didn't know. Like I didn't know what Sainsbury's was. And people, when I finally did get a job, people in the office were like, oh, we're going to Tesco. And I was like, what's Tesco? Like I just felt like I didn't know all of these things. But yeah, my
So,
first,
so you did a lot of your growing up almost in London, where you left home, and usually when people leave home for the first time, they're near their parents, or they can reach out to their parents and get some help. But you came to UK and not knowing anything, and your parents
exactly.
couldn't help you either.
I feel I lived at home, up until I moved to London, I lived at home, and Adelaide probably quite a sheltered place as well. So
Mm.
moving to like this big city on the opposite side of the world, there were a lot of firsts and things that you just kind of crack on and have to work out. But it was probably good that I was naive because you'd sort of like things don't scare you as much because you're not thinking about,
Yeah.
what ifs, because you actually just have no idea what could go wrong. After Gallipoli and traveling through the Greek islands and Spain and Portugal, I made my way to London and I lived in a hostel for nearly 3 months, which was terrible,
Interesting.
but had a private room with a friend. So it
Yeah.
wasn't kind of
Yeah.
like this big bunk, mass people, but it was still a hostel. No kitchen, shared bathroom. And then, yeah, basically was tasked myself with finding somewhere to live, finding a room, finding a job. And I remember landing the job that I ended up working in for just over 5 years in different roles in like a big broadcasting events company and just feeling so happy.
Mm.
Okay, this is going to be okay. The pay was shocking, but it's enough to cover the extortionate rent for one bedroom in a six-person share house. It's crazy to think back, all those things, but they were all exciting. It was exciting to be in a share house. It was exciting to commute in. I mean, the novelty wore off after day one commuting, but all of that going into the big city was so exciting.
Especially since you've been dreaming about doing it in London and living in London. So,
It was, even down to like, what do I wear? Buying
yeah,
like work clothes from Primark, mind you.
Yeah,
best place.
It
which I guess as a young person, it's hard, right?
It's
It's
hard. It's really hard and it's tiring. I had one friend here and then a few faces I'd met traveling. And then you sort of reach out to those people and you've got to put yourself out there. I didn't go to university here, so I didn't have uni friends. I didn't have school
Mm.
friends. It, I felt like it was exciting. I was anonymous in this big city and I could be whoever I wanted to be, which was always just myself. It was a challenge to put yourself out there and meet people and then it's tiring. You're doing a job, you're trying to, make a good impression on your work colleagues that are British and weird and they've got, they drink weird, weird like milky tea or like, just the whole lifestyle and culture. But it was everything that I wanted and I
Yeah.
lapped it up and just absolutely loved it.
you threw yourself in the deep end, right? I mean, you could have moved to. Did you ever think about moving to somewhere like, again, my limited Australian knowledge, Melbourne or Sydney?
They are, I think Sydney was the natural progression for me trying to pursue a career in journalism and wanting
Yeah.
that. But it just didn't. It was always London from when I was a teenager. It was London. And a friend of mine at home, one of my longest friends, actually sent me a picture of my yearbook statement in year 12 when you finish high school. And it
Yeah.
said, D for dream was to make it to London, dot, dot, dot.
Yep.
It was just always what I wanted to do and have been living the dream ever since.
Nice. So, do you know all the aisles in Sainsbury's now? Are you how
Yeah,
comfortable are you in a
yeah.
Sainsbury's, Alana? It's been a few
I'm,
years now.
I'm definitely comfortable in a Sainsbury's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Less so in a
Tesco's.
Waitrose. Yeah, Tesco's number one.
Have you have you heard of Tesco meal deals?
Oh my gosh, that was honestly what I survived on and such a
So good.
treat when I first moved here. I just thought,
Yeah.
why has no other country ever £3, sandwich, snack, drink,
It's good, right?
chef's kiss. So good.
I remember I was having a meal from a Spanish colleague, and he said, "You're so British using crisps for lunch." And I said, "Man, I'm on my lunch break. And this was £3.50, and it's delicious. And I'm not British, but why wouldn't I eat this right now?"
Yeah, why
It's
wouldn't
what
you?
I know
it's
he
one of
was
the few
judging me.
unique benefits of living in the UK, the meal deals. So you have to take advantage of it.
Although I draw the line at the prawn sandwich.
From cocktail,
The shrimp, yeah, shrimp
shrimp.
cocktail.
But
Shrimp with mayonnaise shouldn't be in between bread.
Have you tried the sausage roll
The
from Greg's?
sausage, oh yeah, love, love,
love,
love.
yeah.
Steak bake, love.
This is how you pass
What
your test.
Yeah,
They should ask these questions. These are the questions that are important that you need to know.
these are the important questions.
How much is a meal deal?
what's kept you then, Alana? You've been here for, as in you did your job. Do you think you always wanted to be in London? You got a really good job that
Mm.
you wanted, so you just kind of were like, no culture shock, no missing home, or did
Yeah,
you get
I
there every
mean,
now and then?
I think no culture shocks anymore. You know, the
Yeah,
poor pedestrian traffic, the terrible weather, that's just complaining about that makes us all very British, right? But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, the homesickness it's not as strong as perhaps it once was.
Mm.
But, you know, my family, my parents have just always been incredible. So, I miss them. I miss my best friends at home. I miss the weather and silly things that you kind of, I still think about today. Like I imagine driving down particular roads and at particular times of day. I miss that. And the nostalgia for home is always strong. And I think, 9 years is a long time to be away, but
Yeah.
I've grown up into the person I am today, and I'm so different to the person I was when I lived at home. I'm not the same Alana. I'm completely different. I think traveling and creating a life in London is what has made me who I am today. But yeah, I love Australia. I love Adelaide. I miss it. I miss it so much. But then also when I have been back, I then miss London and I refer to London as
Mm.
home and I want to go home, or I'm excited to go home and kind of, get back to work. And I've always loved the jobs I've done. I have had quite a squiggly career in recent times, but you feel kind of like an alien trapped between these two places. And I think it's a really hard feeling, but probably very relatable for a lot of expats who have their heart in one place and then they live in another place.
Yes. But I mean, it's a very uniquely expat experience where when you go home, you don't feel at home
Hmm.
really. And the experiences that the friends you left behind have had, you almost go in a converging paths or diverging paths
Yeah.
where they go in a different you can spend a few weeks there and you can reminisce, but there comes a point where you're like, okay, I actually have a life somewhere else. And I guess the beauty of London, I mean, you guys know as well, is how London is a place where no one's really home. Like no
Mm.
one's like a born and bred London. There are a lot of people you meet are not local from London, so it's almost like when it's no one's home, it's everyone's home, which is a cool experience.
Yeah, it is. And I think this time of year, the weather is starting to get nicer
Hmm.
finally. The sun is still shining and setting later, and everyone absorbs that positive energy. The pubs are filled, and there's drinking on the streets, and the parks are filled, and picnics. And I think when there's that sort of atmosphere, that's part of the reason why I love London, and seeing those people come together from all different parts of the world and different walks of life and uniting over the British weather is something nice.
One topic.
We're all at home.
Yeah,
That,
it's funny how everyone hates London during the winters and everyone loves London during the
Yeah.
summers.
we can use this. We can use a segue into Sohrab's favorite topic, Alana, which is, I don't know why, but he keeps talking about pubs to everyone that we talk to. So go on, Sohrab,
The
ask the
pub
pub question.
question. Yeah, so the question is obviously a uniquely British establishment. Is that was that an interesting experience coming from Australia, or is there something similar to pub culture
Mm,
in Australia? Because it's such a, I guess they call it a third place for a lot of people, where it's not
yeah,
home, it's not work, but a place to just hang out at the pub.
a
Is it?
community, like a hub,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
I mean, Australia, like across Australia, there's certainly pub culture, and whether that's small country towns with populations of
Mm.
a couple of thousand, they are united by these country pubs where they have, steak and
Oh,
chips on a Thursday night or a palmy on a Tuesday. And, there's these locals that definitely, the watering hole, they're always at and
yes.
have, cold beer on tap on a hot day. Like there's certainly that culture. And there's pubs that kind of get run down and then done up, and locals love a
Mhm.
drink, like lots of other Australians. So
Yeah,
we would
yeah.
frequent lots of pubs, but there's truly nothing like the London or British pub experience, that there's a new, different pub on every corner and filled with different types of people and different walks of life. And I think that's what makes London, that's what you do in London. The first 4 to 5 years of my life living in London was drinking in different pubs, catching up with friends in pubs,
Yeah.
maybe having a meal, but then the pub you're in turns into a bit of a nightclub, having a dance in a pub, having brunch the next day in a pub. Like it is a very
Well,
uniquely British thing that there's just pubs on every corner.
it's true. Yeah, yeah. You touched on brunches, which before I met my fiance, who's also Australian, I'd never had a brunch, and certainly not a bottomless brunch. But that was a I think an introduction for me into that kind of culture as well. Which I don't know, is that a Australian thing that you guys brought over? Because I know in terms of food, Australia is a few steps ahead of England in terms of food culture and trying out different types of foods and stuff. Is that an import as well, or no?
Do you know what? I I think that the boozy brunch, which obviously is a great experience
It's
that
amazing.
everyone should try out,
Yeah.
responsibly, of course. I feel like that started in America, in New York. I mean, when
Oh,
I was in New York in 2014, I went with some of my friends to these boozy brunches because it was what a good deal. Like you can drink bottomless mimosas or cocktails, have some
yeah.
eggs, have some, loaded hash browns, whatever you might be eating. So yeah, I don't think it was Australian. I think it's definitely become popular in Australia, but the responsible service of alcohol in Australia probably makes it trickier for them to be as boozy and irresponsible, which a lot of the British boozy brunches, I
Yeah.
would say, are very boozy. But
Oh, is that a thing? Well, you mentioned the
Responsible drinking.
responsible.
responsible, yeah, it's
Ah,
called the RSA license. And if you work in
okay.
hospitality or in a bar or a
Mhm.
pub, you have to have this license. So if anyone's too intoxicated, you can't legally serve them, and you can legally deny them a drink. Obviously, it's quite a grey area, but I think that makes it tricky because establishments don't want to have their license revoked. So
So probably
Okay.
the same here, just the grey line is much wider probably.
I think here, from
I've-
talking from experience, negotiating
yeah,
that
yeah,
extra bottle of Prosecco is far easier than doing that in Australia.
yeah. And also I'm pretty sure, yeah, all the bottomless brunches I have been to have been organized by you, Alana.
Yeah,
So a lot of the interaction have been made by you.
a
But
huge fan.
they don't really check if you're drunk or not. They just continue bringing you booze, and
Yeah.
and you're just trying to keep up with it, really.
And there's some that
I
are
was I
definitely
was
better
trying to
than
survive.
others.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you need to drink as much as possible just to make it? I
No, it,
no. It's not like
it's at some point you tell them to stop bringing it because you're like, please, I can't anymore.
You might have an hour or like, I guess the name of the game is to drink your money's worth.
bottomless. Nice.
Mm.
You never want to
Same
see the
here.
bottom of that glass.
And you won't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Caravan actually on the weekends. There you go.
Yes.
Establishment, but there was no bottomless. anything there, unfortunately.
But did you have the avocado on toast?
No, I didn't. But I did have it. I've had it previously, so
You're an honorary Australian already then.
I've
Yeah,
actually.
you also been to Lantana, right, Flavio?
Yeah, but there's a lantern in
So
my
so
house. But I think the number one Aussie thing I've done was to come with you guys. I don't know if you were there. I think you were there, Alana, to
yes,
a pub in Clapham where I had chicken palm me on
Palmy, yeah,
Australia National Independent
Australia Day.
Day, Australia
yeah,
Day
Australia
for
Day.
short.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was a great palmy, a pot and a palmy,
Brilliant.
right?
Yes,
What
yeah.
would you say is the best place to get? Where can someone go to get the best chicken palm in London?
They're hard to find. Probably my kitchen. I make a mean chicken palmy.
I'm coming over.
You're welcome.
Amazing. In terms of another uniquely, I mean, there is a bit of a rivalry between you guys, but Australia is known for its great coffee, or also New Zealand. But what are some good coffee places in London that you've been to that kind of match the Australian coffee? I know you guys love it.
Love a good
And remind us as well that our
coffee.
coffee isn't as good.
Yeah. It's, I think the coffee culture in London has evolved so much, just as you mentioned, like the brunch scene, the
Yeah.
food scene overall, has changed and diversified hugely in the time I've lived here. But there are a lot of good Aussie cafes that do excellent coffee and brunch. So as a
Hmm.
combination, there's quite a few in Balham, Tooting, Clapham. There's
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Brickwood, which is down south, which was always very good coffee as well. An incredible brunch place in Tooting, which is where I used to live for 5 years in London, is called Juliet. And they did amazing coffee, excellent food. I'm sure it's still down there. Really, really good place. Loved that. That's Aussie owned and operated. In
Oh,
terms of
amazing.
central, it is easier to get good coffee these days
Mm.
from most places than it used to be. There are lots of chains to avoid and find those little local baristas. That's where you're getting the good brew.
Any chains to avoid specifically?
I don't want to get done for defamation.
Avoid Costa at all costs.
Costa, Blank
Yeah,
Oh
Street. I think
gosh.
Blank Street's probably a bit hyped up.
Oh, that's
yeah.
also.
That's just machine coffee.
Yeah, avoid Blank Street.
Yeah,
Avoid
now
Blank
you,
Street coffee.
yeah, exactly. With
No, I do.
any cease and desist, obviously you know where to send it.
No, I think yeah, I do think in London there's a lot of coffee options. Speaking of coffee, I don't know if they're Australian owned or not, but it's like the hipster thing to do, right? Everyone loves to open a coffee shop, and there's one near my house where they roast their own beans, and it's pretty good. Birdtail coffee. There you go. Don't avoid it.
You love your coffee, right, Flavio? You have your own coffee machine.
I got my own Sage Barista Express.
It does. I hear every time in the mornings I speak to Flavio, I also hear his machine being turned on and it makes
Buzzing
that
in the
background
background.
noise.
Well, it
The
is
morning
iced
ritual.
coffee season, so I think it's easier to
That
get
is
a
true.
good iced coffee.
Yeah, you don't have to froth the milk. Yeah, because
Yeah.
my girlfriend's been using she's learned how to use the coffee machine. So the dependency on me is decreasing, but also every time she uses it, I just feel like it just feels wrong. It's my thing. Stay
Ah,
away.
Yeah, you don't sound happy about it. Fair
It has
enough.
to warm up for 10 minutes first.
There's a ritual to it.
Yeah,
So,
fair enough.
do you see yourself being here for the foreseeable future? Are there other places you might want to live in temporarily, other countries, any adventures you want to do, or
so
you're like,
many
yeah,
adventures.
London's my place.
Too
I know.
many. It's actually stressful thinking about all the places I want to go and places I want to go back to, like holiday wise, of course. In terms of
Mm,
living elsewhere, I mean, I've met my partner. We've been together 5 years. He is a Londoner, born and bred East Londoner.
Oh wow.
And
cool.
I would say, yeah, like we're really happy and pretty set on our
Yeah.
life. We live in East London now. He forced me to cross the river, which wasn't thrilled with at the start, but actually I love E17, Walthamstow, that's where we're based.
Woo.
It is, yeah, like really just such a great community and neighborhood. And I feel like London is just perfect for our lifestyle and the life we anticipate and want to kind of continue leading. When I was younger, before I met Chris, I always had this like pull to go to New York, like live. I love New York. I've been multiple times for days and days at a time. And I just
Okay.
loved the big city. And I always
Mm.
thought I'd love to go and get a great job in New York for summer, autumn, spring, no winter. I don't think I could have
Mm.
that. But do you know what? Never say never. Like I would always be open to moving somewhere else. You
Yeah.
know, there's a huge expat community in Berlin, which I think would be cool. But remembering how hard it was starting out in London,
Yeah.
and that feels quite daunting to even kind of consider
Mm.
doing that again somewhere else. Um,
Maybe you can tell Chris to go and stay in a hostel in Berlin.
yeah,
You stay here and see what he
see
thinks.
how he likes it. Something tells me he's not a hostel guy.
Well,
Does he want to? Have you thought about maybe taking him to Australia for a few months?
Yeah, do you know what? He's
Childhood.
been to Australia like a few times. And before we even met, he actually backpacked around Australia and New Zealand for nearly 5 months. And
Oh,
he loves it. It's just a bit too far from Europe for him in terms
mm.
of traveling. And yeah, but any
That-
excuse to go back, I've got
he,
to,
yeah,
he
true.
probably had an issue with that responsible drinking
yeah,
license thing.
he's not happy about the limit of the boozy brunches.
I'd be unhappy if I'm ordering unlimited bottomless and I get stopped at some point. I'll be like, look, listen, this is bottomless.
Yeah, change its name then.
Yeah, one final thing we would like to ask our guest is what are some things that you kind of miss from Australia that you look back and you're like, oh, okay, damn, this is what I miss. And what are some things you learned from living in London? Obviously, in your case, you learned a lot and you did a lot of growing in London. So maybe something unique that stands out as well.
For sure. Well, easy. I mean, miss like family and friends. I feel like that just
Yeah.
goes without saying in Australia.
Yes.
But I think like more broadly, just really miss the lifestyle,
Mm.
very laid back, chilled, like, sort of all the characteristics of Aussies, and particularly from Adelaide. It's called or it's known as the 20-minute city. So you can get anywhere in 20 minutes. And, when
Oh,
your
wow.
typical commute on public transport on the tube in London is like 45 minutes to an hour, to
Yeah.
think that you could be in your house, jump in your car in Adelaide, and 20 minutes you're in the hills in like a winery, you're 20 minutes you're in the beach, you could be swimming in the ocean.
It's quite unique for Australia as well, isn't it? 20
Yeah,
minutes. It's huge country.
yeah, it is massive. And, to get from state to state, but Adelaide's sort of
Mm.
colloquially known as like this big country town, which I love. I probably didn't love growing up, thinking that was really insulting, but it's actually just a really beautiful community. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I really miss that lifestyle and the comfort and ease of knowing where things are and what to do.
Mm.
And yeah, certainly the proximity to my parents I miss the
Yeah.
most. But yeah, I mean, as you said, like I have learned so much and grown up into the adult or woman I am today by living in London. I think probably in recent years, a big learning curve of like being true to myself and sort of like knowing what I want. And just because I'm living in London doesn't mean that I should sort of change my mind about like certain things and kind of honoring like what really, when you go to bed at night and close your eyes and think, have I made an impact? Like, have I been a good person? Like, all of those things that, sure everyone strives and wants to be and happy and healthy. I think that's sort of, putting that self-care first and making sure that
Yeah.
your morals sort of align with that. I think that's a huge thing I've learned in recent years of it's okay to be selfish and
Yeah.
have some me time is certainly something that I never did, moving to London with no friends and, meeting people and saying yes to everything all the time. It's actually
Yeah.
a new chapter in London now is it's okay. It's lovely. Like I love going out for brunch by myself or going for lunch and spending that alone time in this city that we all love. I feel
Hmm.
like that's a big lesson I've learned that that's okay to do as well.
Wow, amazing. I think that's something that we can all learn a little bit from as well. Uh, Taking care of ourselves is something good as well.
More of a
Cool.
wholesome balance of boozy brunch
Yeah.
Saturday, maybe a nice walk in the park Sunday.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no, I thought you were saying boozy brunch with friends one day and then boozy brunch by yourself the
Yeah.
other day.
Yeah, that's my next weekend's plans.
That was my takeaway. Awesome. Okay. I think we can wrap up. Thank you so
Well,
much, Alana, for joining us.
thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that was, you
We'll
need to
definitely
organize on for it.
we'll organize a boozy brunch for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.